Yesterday, Yaraji explained that the person who is to practice Satipatthana meditation or who has been practicing Satipatthana meditation, knowing the quality of Satipatthana practice, the person's saddha, faith and confidence is awakened. If one does not cultivate the awakened saddha, then one can fall back asleep and one can become fast asleep. So that's why one needs to cultivate the awakened saddha. One should cultivate it by further practice. So it is necessary to cultivate the awakened saddha by practicing Satipatthana meditation. By practicing Satipatthana meditation, when Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, become matured, one realizes cessation, nibbana. Once the person realizes nibbana, the faith and confidence will become firm and unshaken. So yogis have to practice to that level of attaining nibbana so that their saddha, faith and confidence will become firm and unshaken. Yogis who are here to practice meditation, they have learned the qualities of Satipatthana practice by little or by much. And they are those who have practiced Satipatthana meditation, and there are those who have practiced Satipatthana meditation to a long period. In order to cultivate the awakened saddha, faith and confidence, one should be noting the presently arising object that is arising at the present moment. There are 4 fields of objects to be noticed: kaya, vedana, citta and dhamma, body, feeling, consciousness, and the mental object. Among these 4 fields of objects to be noticed, there is the presently arising object that is arising at the present moment. And one should be mindful of the presently arising object with aim and effort, with sustained mindfulness, without missing, without failing. So in this way, one should be mindful, one should cultivate the awakened saddha by noting every bodily action, every feelings and sensations, thoughts, imaginations, the mind, and also other general activities with aim and effort, with sustained mindfulness. So there are the nama rupa, mind and matter, that are arising due to their relevant cause. The nama rupa which really exist, and one should be noting them with aim and effort in the way of cultivating the awakened. In Mahasatipatthana Sutta, there is the explanation, wide explanation. But in order to have concise instruction for those who like the concise instruction, in Iti Vuddaka it says Sakkumando Pasandi, meaning that the person who has the knowledge eye will see the truth. So how should one do in order to have the knowledge eye? It is said, Bhutam Bhutato Passati. Bhutam means the things that are arising, that are existing. They are things arising that are existing in the sixth sense door. And later on, Sayadaw will explain how knowledge arises. So in the sixth sense door, there are things that are arising due to their relevant cause. And these things, these bhuta, the nama rupa that arise due to their relevant cause, they are really present. They are paramattha, the ultimate truth, which can be discerned directly through the practice. So these bhuta arise due to the relevant cause. So in Mahasatipatthana Sutta, they explain the field of objects to be noted. So all these objects to be noted are called in a two-syllable word as bhuta. So bhuta are the objects that are arising at the sixth sense door due to the relevant cause. These bhuta are arising at the present moment, and passati means to look or to observe. So it is the Buddha's teaching. There is anati, meaning Buddha encouraged or Buddha made the being to practice that one should observe the Buddha, the nama rupa that are arising at the present moment due to the relevant cause. How should one be mindful? How should one be observing the object? And it is said, Atapi Santajano Satima. One should note the object continuously without any gap in between. Atapi means the person who has ardent effort in the practice. One should not be practicing in cold or sluggish manner, but one should practice diligently with courageous effort, with ardent effort. When noting the object with ardent effort, there will be sati, mindfulness. The mind will be falling calm and collected on the object, and samadhi, concentration, develops. And the jhanic factors, vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekagata. Among these jhanic factors, vitakka means aiming, directing the mind onto the object, and it is one of the jhanic factors. So jhana here, the definition is by concentrating the mind, by observing the object closely, it is called jhana. So observing the object closely, concentratedly, is called jhana. And one should note the object with ease and effort. So in this way, there should be passati. One should note the object, observe the object with aim and effort continuously. As soon as the object arises, in order that the noting mind should be direct or face to face with the object, one should aim and direct the mind onto the object so that the mind will not reach elsewhere. One should assert the effort. One should invest the effort in the practice. And passati means to be mindful to observe the object with aim and effort. How one should observe the object? Paṇḍitā means one should be mindful of the object as the object really is. And these objects arise as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, bending, stretching, turning, blinking, opening and closing of the eyes, and so on. And these objects are called in everyday language as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. So the vocabulary or the common usage, paṇḍitā concept. So it is the name concept such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So in the body there are the Paramattha, the ultimate truth, where their nature manifests as hardness, softness, roughness, subtleness, wetness, moisture, stickiness, cohesion, fluidity, warmth, heat, cold, lightness, heaviness, stiffness, tension, movement. All of these are Paramattha, ultimate truth. So in the beginning of the practice, one should be noting the object in common usage, such as rising, falling. In the sitting meditation, when one inhales, when one breathes in, the abdomen rises, and one should note rising of the abdomen with the mental note, mental label as rising. And when breathing out, the abdomen falls, so the usage is falling. So one should notice with the mental labeling in common usage as falling. And the same goes as sitting, touching, bending, stretching. So there are these objects to be noted. So there are wide objects to be noted. Even blinking, opening, and closing of the eyes are to be noted. So these objects are to be noted in the way they really are. Paṇḍitā is defined as yatha sabhavato, meaning one should be mindful of them in the way they really are, in the way their nature exists. The example is given here. A stone is a stone. A stone is not a gold nugget. So, also, gold is a gold, and if it is a soil, then it is a soil. So one should look at it whether it is a stone or a gold or a soil. So just as in the example, one should be noting the object in the way the object really exists. So in noting the object, one should not be practicing in the way they think is right, but they should be noting the object with the mental labeling in common usage, noting rising as rising, falling as falling, sitting as sitting, touching as touching, bending as bending, stretching as stretching. And in walking meditation, one should be noting the steps, lifting, moving, placing. So one should be noting these steps, lifting, moving, placing, with the mental labeling in common usage as lifting, moving, and placing. One should be noting these objects in the way they really are. By noting the object, aiming, directing the noting mind onto the object, exerting effort in the practice, noting with aim and effort, sati, mindfulness develops, and the person is called Satima, the person who is endowed with Sati, mindfulness. In this way, one should continuously be noting, observing the object with aim and effort, so that Sati, mindfulness, will stick onto the object. And later on, Theraji will explain the meaning of Satipatthana. By noting the object with aim and effort, when mindfulness is sustained, Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, develops. And as the yogi becomes skillful in the practice, the noting mind is automatically aimed on the object, and as there is effort, there will be sustained mindfulness on the object, and the mind will fall calm and collected on the object. When the noting mind falls calm and collected on the object, yogi comes to discern the true nature of the object. In noting the object, yogi should be noting with the mental labeling, and the mental label should be in common usage. So one should be noting with the mental labeling in common usage in the Sutanta way. In noting the object with aim and effort, when the practice becomes skillful, Sati mindfulness develops, Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, will become strengthened. And when Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration becomes strengthened, then yogi will discern. Yogi will discern the object in the way the object is. Salakhanato, meaning yogi discerns the true nature of the object. When the noting mind falls on rupa, yogi comes to discern the true nature, the characteristic of rupa. When the noting mind falls on nama, yogi comes to discern the true nature, the characteristic of nama. For example, when noting rising of the abdomen, when the noting mind falls on rising, yogi comes to discern the nature of the characteristics such as stiffness, tension. Stiffness, tension is the characteristic of Vayu Dhatu, the air element. In the abdomen, Vayu Puttapa, the tangible object of the wind element, strikes on the abdomen, and one discerns the nature, stiffness, tension, which is the characteristic of Vayu Dhatu. And at times, yogi discerns the nama, the noting mind that is knowing the object. In this way, yogi discerns the nama, mentality. By being mindful, yogi discerns rupa, materiality, and at times yogi discerns the nama, mentality. The noting mind that knows the object is aramanika, the mental phenomena. In this way, yogi discerns the nama and rupa distinctly. The knowledge that develops through the practice of mindfulness is not Sudamaya Jnana, or it is not Sridamaya Jnana. The knowledge one gains through the practice of mindfulness excels then the Sudamaya and Sridamaya knowledge, the theoretical knowledge or the intellectual knowledge. The knowledge one gains through the practice is outstanding than such kind of theoretical or intellectual knowledge. By noting the object, yogi discerns nama rupa, mind and matter, cause and effect. So Sayadaw explains how cause and effect is discerned. When noting rising and falling of the atonement, at times the falling fades away and the falling is no longer perceivable. When falling is no longer perceivable, the noting mind that notes the falling does not take place, and if rising disappears, the noting mind that knows the rising will not take place. So only if there is object, the noting mind that knows the object will arise. And if the object disappears, the noting mind that knows the object will not take place. So in this way, if there is a rising, the noting mind that knows the rising will arise. If the rising disappears, the noting mind that knows the rising will not take place. So the object is the cause, the noting mind that knows the object is the effect. So these are arising as cause and effect. By being mindful of the object, yogi also comes to discern the cause and effect. The nama, rupa are arising, connecting to each other as cause and effect. As the nama, rupa arise as cause and effect in the present, in the past as well, they are arising as cause and effect. And in the future as well, they will arise as cause and effect. As the yogi discerns through oneself, one also comes to an inference or deduction that in other people as well, the nama, rupa are arising as cause and effect. In this way, yogi discerns through inference that also in other persons, the nama, rupa are arising as cause and effect. And in this way, yogi overcomes or yogi removes the doubt momentarily by developing knowledge. By observing, by being mindful of the object that is present, that is arising, yogi discerns the nama, rupa. By discerning the nama, rupa, the knowledge eye has opened up. Discerning cause and effect, the knowledge eye becomes little matured. In order to make the knowledge eye more and more mature, in order to attain the real happiness, one should be mindful of Buddha, the nama, rupa that arise at the present moment with aim and effort. So yogi should be mindful of the object that is arising at the present moment. It is not possible to be noting the object that has not arisen with imagination. And if the person is noting the object that has not arisen with imagination, the person will not get anywhere, even though she practices the whole life. And Sayadaw says, Westerners like to think. They like to think, they like to imagine. When an object arises, they will be thinking what it is, why is it, how is it, rather than noting it right away. And at times they may be reflecting the theory that they may have learned. So it is not possible to be noting the object in imaginary, but one should be noting the object that really exists with aim and effort. So yogi should be careful about it, not to be thinking, imagining, rather than noting the object. One should be noting the presently arising objects in the way they really are. And by being mindful of the object, one can discern the unique individual characteristics. Salakkhanato, meaning yogi will discern the object by discerning the unique individual characteristics of the object. Nobody can deny the fact that yogi will discern the characteristics of the object by being mindful. The example is given here. Each and every food has its own flavor. In the same way, the nama rupa that are arising has their own unique individual characteristics. They have their own nature. One should be noting at the moment the object arises so that yogi discerns the true nature of the object. If the yogi does not exert effort in the practice, laziness will arise. It is called kosakya, laziness. If the person does not aim or direct the mind onto the object, the noting mind will go elsewhere. Not aiming, directing the noting mind onto the object, there can be wrongful thoughts such as kama vitaka, sensual thoughts, yabada vitaka, ill will thoughts, vihimsa vitaka, cruel thoughts. If there is lack of mindfulness, the mind will not be guarded, protected. Lacking mindfulness, there is no protection, and the defilement can enter the mind. Coming across desirable objects, there will be greed. By lack of mindfulness, coming across undesirable objects, there can be anger, hatred, aversion arising. In this way, the defilements arise by leaps and bounds when there is lack of mindfulness. Lacking mindfulness, the mind will not be calm or collected. The mind will run elsewhere, and when the mind is distracted, yogi will not discern the nature of the object. Yogi will not discern anything if the mind is not collected or unified. Not being mindful, the defilements arise. By being mindful, the defilements cannot arise. So in order to discern the true nature, yogi should be mindful continuously. Yogi should be cultivating khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, moment by moment, continuously. One moment of khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, is not as strong. But khanika samadhi, when momentary concentration arises moment by moment, one after another, continuously, it will build up the energy of momentary concentration. When the energy of momentary concentration becomes strengthened, yogi discerns the true nature. As the saying goes, Sakumando Tasandi, meaning the person who has the knowledge eye will see the true nature. The person who does not know the value of Satipatthana practice will not have faith and confidence on the benefit of practice, and the person will not practice. Even if the person knows the value of practice, even if the person knows the quality of practice, but if the person does not practice respectfully, meticulously, then the person will not be noting the object with aim and effort. laziness arises, the yogi will not be alert or active in noting the object. There will be lack of mindfulness, and thus defilements arise. By lack of mindfulness, defilements arise. The arising of defilement is compared to having to breathe polluted air. When the person inhales polluted air, the blood circulation will not be good, and the person is afflicted with illness such as headache or any other illness. In the same way, if the person inhales the defilement air, there will be illness such as tension, stress, and depression. When the defilements enter the mind becomes polluted, dirty, having illnesses such as tension, stress, and depression. Just as when the person inhales fresh air, the oxygen circulates in the body and the person becomes fresh, and there will be good blood circulation and the person becomes healthy. So yogi should be noting the object with aim and effort so that mindfulness will develop, the mind will be calm and collected, and thus the defilements have no chance to arise. When the defilements do not arise, the mind will be pure, clean, knowledge arises. As much as knowledge arises, the mind will become more and more fresh, more and more pure and clean. Just as fresh air is essential for everyone, every being, regardless of race or religion, in the same way, Satipatthana is essential for everyone of any religion, any race. And Theraji will continue to explain the next day. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.